Right. Well, thank you so much, Kate. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to meet with me today and hear me talk and share with you a little bit about the internship opportunities that we offer at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Um, as Kate mentioned, come prepared with questions and think of some things as I'm kind of going through everything. I'm going to cover a lot and in some good detail. So hopefully a lot of your questions will be answered as we go through the presentation. As you'll see on the screen presently, the museum website, as well as our resource email account that I respond to for internships, is available on the screen. So feel free to take note of that, but it will appear later in the presentation as well, so you can follow along then as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so just to kind of give you a little bit of information about the museum, which I feel probably all of you already know, but the National Museum of African American History and Culture is the only national museum devoted exclusively to the documentation of African American life, history, and culture. It was established by an act of Congress in 2003, following decades of efforts to promote and highlight the contributions of African Americans. To date, the museum has collected more than 36,000 artifacts and nearly 100,000 individuals have become members. The museum opened to the public on September 24th of 2016 as the 19th and newest museum of the Smithsonian Institution. All right, so I want to share with you some general information about our internship program. We offer both full-time and part-time positions during the fall, spring, and summer months. Internships are generally anywhere from 10 to 15 weeks in length. And we do offer stipends for our positions, but they do vary by position. There are some, again, unpaid and paid internships that we do offer at the museum. Now, our internship program covers a wide variety of museum careers and industries. Most people think of museum jobs as just being curators, but there's tons of things that have to go into making a museum experience happen for guests. So on the screen, you'll presently see a lot of the positions that we do offer at our museum. So we offer positions within our advancement department, which is where you're going to find things such as fundraising and donor relations, annual giving and things of that sort, and even corporate relations. Curatorial affairs is, of course, where all the different types of curation happen, whether they be music, history, or other specialties. They're all going to be within that department. Collections specializes specifically in the area of maintaining and storage of the objects within the museum's collection or artifacts when they are not on display in the museum. So that's another level of conservation and preservation there. We also offer internships within our education department. Of course, within our youth engagement programs, childhood education. We also do programs with infants and babies as well. So all those positions will be found within the education department. Exhibits. This would encompass not only the installation of exhibits and artifacts into the museum, but of course also the design of the exhibits that takes place. So everything from how the signage is situated within the museum when you come and look at it as a guest, the glass displays, anything of that sort would fall under exhibits. And of course, there has to be someone to design that. So we do offer design internships within that position as well. Strategic partnerships. These are opportunities where working on our strategic partnerships department of the museum, we have relationships with other cultural sites, colleges and universities, corporations and things of that nature go within strategic partnerships. So it deals a lot with cultivating relationships with these organizations and how we at our museum can collaborate. Public affairs, also known as external affairs, is where you of course are going to find a lot of the marketing positions that we offer at the museum, everything from graphic design, web communications, events, things of that sort are all within public affairs. And last but certainly not least, operations. Within our operations department, that's where you are going to find a lot of the facilities management, IT positions that we offer, and things of that sort that typically people don't think about. Even guest services fall within that as well. All right, to talk a little bit about the qualifications and requirements for our internship program. We accept and welcome all majors to apply for our internship. We also allow international students to apply as well. At the Smithsonian, we have the Office of International Relations. And through them, international students can also find out more detailed information about sponsorship, paperwork processes, and things of that sort. So I encourage international students to always reach out to them while they are also looking at our program or any other program at the museums and the Smithsonian. We currently accept current undergraduate as well as graduate students, as well as recent alumni who have been up to 3 years out of school to apply for our program. It's not a requirement, but we do expect or hope that students would have a cumulative GPA of 3.0 or its equivalent with withdrawals and incompletes kind of explained in the internship application or within their transcripts. And of course, as I mentioned, because we do offer both part-time and full-time positions within our internship programs, we ask that you, of course, are able to commit to working at least a minimum of 20 hours per week in your internship. And these hours can vary by position, and these are usually determined between the mentor and the intern at the time of an offer being extended. All right, so since I've talked to you a little bit about the basic nuts and bolts of what our program kind of looks like, I do want to share with you some of the perks and benefits to our program. We do offer college credit if applicable. This is something that the intern would have to take responsibility for as far as coordinating the paperwork that their university asks for and things of that nature, but we're more than happy to sign off on anything as facilitated or required by their program. We also do a lot of professional development workshops and trainings. This would include weekly sessions with various staff members in different departments across the museum in the different departments that I spoke about earlier, everyone from curatorial affairs to advancement to our marketing team to education. Even our director of the museum also comes in to speak to the interns. It is during these sessions that our intention is to have a networking opportunity for the interns while they're working with us and not just being siloed within the department in which they are currently engaging. On top of that, we do professional development trainings on everything from cover letter and resume development and interview skills to also learning how to navigate the government contracting process. So that way our students or interns rather, once they have left their internship, they have a basis for understanding of how to apply for future government contracting jobs if they should see anything that is of interest to them. We also offer a number of discounts at the Smithsonian and our facilities. So basically a lot of the discounts that we would receive as staff members, you can take advantage of those as well. This would include discounted or complimentary parking at some of the Smithsonian sites and locations. Of course, admittance to a lot of the museums without having to wait, which is always really nice. And it also includes discounted tickets to the IMAX theaters at the Smithsonian as well for movies. So you can also take advantage of that and receiving passes, especially to our museum when you are trying to intern, bring guests and things of that sort, which is really cool. We also encourage our interns to do a lot of like social events. So sometimes they will coordinate things independently, but sometimes we will do things as staff as well. This could be anything from getting complimentary tickets to a performance at the Kennedy Center or being invited to take a one-on-one class with one of the other groups of interns at another museum, a behind the scenes type of thing. You'll also receive access to the Smithsonian libraries. We do a library training session with our interns on how to use the Smithsonian libraries and what the resources are available to them. So there's a lot of great opportunity there if you are very scholarly and want to do a lot of research. We also do a lot of networking events, not only at our museum, but also at other museums. The Office of Fellowships and Internships, which is the overall arching Smithsonian governing body, I should kind of say, that manages all the internships at the various museums. They do a lot of networking events for interns to kind of meet, interact with each other, as well as professional development opportunities on their own. We also encourage our interns to take advantage of volunteer opportunities to see how the different departments of the museum work together. So even if you are working, say, for example, in education, we encourage you to take advantage of maybe volunteering and helping out at a special event. So you can just kind of see and network with other people within the museum industry in that regard also. We also do tours, of course, of our museum. And in addition to that, we also take our interns to our offsite collections facility known as Penzi, so they can see what the collections facility looks like and how those artifacts make it from the public or historical sites to our museum before they wind up being showcased on the museum floor. So that's always a real treat for our interns to see that as well. All right, so to talk to you about a couple of different things, I do want to mention to you all how you can apply for our internship program. As I mentioned, we do offer our program year round. So we offer positions during the fall, spring, and summer months. The application deadlines and dates are always going to be the same for each of those different seasons at this time. So for our summer application deadlines, our applications are open now, and that deadline is going to be March the 15th of 2021. And then for our fall internships coming up, the deadline for that will be July the 15th. And then for the upcoming spring of 2022, it's hard to even think about that right now, but that application deadline will be October the 15th. Now, what you'll need to do when you go to our website is you'll be directed then to SOLA, which is our application system and program for all Smithsonian internships. It is there on this website that you'll be able to create an account and then start your application process. And I'll show you what that application process looks like in just a few moments and how to kind of navigate our website to find it. But basically what you will do is you will, of course, create your application in there, and you'll have to submit that through our website. Applicants can select up to 3 positions when applying to our program. You have to, of course, select one, but you can select up to 3 different positions. My recommendation in doing so is, of course, when you are submitting your information in the essay that I mentioned here in the instructions, is that you talk about each of the 3 positions and why you are interested in them versus just talking about one. You want to make sure that you have all your bases covered. You'll also need to submit a resume, as well as, again, the personal essay stating the opportunities of interest and why you're interested in those opportunities. Of course, you'll need to submit your academic transcripts. Unofficial transcripts are also accepted. And then, of course, you'll need to submit 2 reference letters. Now, these reference letters, you can directly upload them into the application yourself, or you can also use the SOLA system to have the software reach out to your recommender, and then they can submit it directly to the application without it having to touch your hands. It's kind of similar, I think, to how most colleges and universities do their application systems presently right now for their degrees and programs. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and then switch over to our website, because I do want to show you all how to apply to our internship program. So give me just one moment while I switch that here for you. Okay. So when you go to our Musuem website, this is the main landing page for our website. And in order to find our program, you're going to look under Connect. And once you look under Connect, can you all see this okay? Just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. Once you click on Connect, then you will select Internships and Fellowships. And this will take you to the main landing page for our website. And here, a lot of the information that I just spoke about can be found on our website: the eligibility, academic credit, et cetera, the application deadlines. I've even included some links here to some other funding sources that are offered through OFI, as well as to their website as well, so you can find more information about other Smithsonian internships and opportunities. So once you have decided that you want to apply, after you've read through everything on the website, on this front landing page, you can select available opportunities. And once you have selected that, this is where you will find all of the information for each of the different positions that we are offering. So it's broken down by each of the different departments that I mentioned at the museum. So if you were looking for, again, our advancement internship, for example, you can select this and it'll give you the name of the internship, whether it's full-time or part-time, whether it offers a stipend or not, and also the tentative start and end dates. Again, our start and end dates are kind of flexible depending on, of course, your academic schedule and also conversations with the mentor. But again, that's discussed during and when an offer is extended after the interview process. And you'll find a brief description of our internship position, as well as some of the basic or general duties that you might encounter doing the internship. So again, this is for each of the different categories, and for positions where we don't offer, departments where we aren't offering a position, there won't be anything listed there. So again, so you'll know when you're looking through this, what information is available and what positions are available. So once you've decided on that, you can click up here in this link for applying via SOLA, and this will take you to the application portal for the Smithsonian. And once you are here, and I have a dummy account that I've set up, so I'm going to log into this really quick to show you what the application looks like, just so you have an idea and you're not caught off guard. So once you've created your account, you'll be able to log in. Here we go. Misspelled my own name. All right, let's try that again. All right, so once you've logged into the system, you'll be able to start a new application. So you would select and start your application here. And then you can select and search from all the different museums within the Smithsonian and other work sites that we have as to internship opportunities. So for our museum, clearly you would select NAMOC. And you can select, of course, currently active. And then it'll search and it'll pull up our museum. So then you'll start the actual application for the program. You would do apply now. And I've already started an application, but you could, of course, begin a brand new application. So I'm going to continue with my application, my test application in here. And again, here's where all the information that you would submit, you would have to fill this out as you would for any other job opportunity or program that you're probably familiar with at this point. But one thing I do want to point out to you is this option here under program choices. This is where you will have the opportunity to select which internship positions you want to apply for. And again, you can select up to 3, but are only asked to select 1 for certain. So here you'll see all the positions that we are offering for summer in 2021. So you can select all 3 of these and include that with your application once you have submitted. And once you're all done, you will hit the submit button and your application will be sent to us for consideration once it's complete. You can start your application and then complete it a little bit later once you have, gotten all your materials and information together in that regard. But I just want to let you know that that is an option for you there as well. So I'm just going to pull up this last screen here so that way you can see my contact information once again. All right. So that kind of concludes or does conclude my presentation on our internship program. And I'm free to take questions now about anything that I have discussed or you may have questions about otherwise. But again, you can reach out to me at this email address. And also that is the museum's website for our internship and fellowship program right there.
Darius, there are a couple questions that we already got in the chat, so maybe I'll start with those and then
Awesome.
if people feel comfortable unmuting, you can either unmute or put the questions in the chat and I will pose them as well. So for the first question would be, do grad students have priority for curation or curatorial internships?
No, we ask that our mentors review all applicants equally in the review process. My suggestion would be to any applicant that's applying to our program, of course, highlight the skills that you feel make you qualify, just as you would for any other job or opening as to why you should be selected. And then, of course, also speak to the position itself. Like I said, on our website, we have the description of our positions listed there. So make sure that you speak to some of the things that references. Often people will submit applications and not even though they selected a position, they won't take the time to offer that little bit of detail or insight as to why they would like to work on this particular project. So that would be my recommendation to kind of set yourself apart, but we do not give any preferential treatment to graduate or undergraduate students.
Great, thank you. Another question was, how are these internships proceeding with COVID? Are they virtual? And can you tell us a little bit more about what that would look like?
Yes, definitely. I'm glad you asked that question because now that I think about it, I forgot to mention it. Currently, our internships for the summer of 2021 and likely as well for the fall of 2021. All of our internships are virtual experiences to fall in line with the health and safety guidelines set forth by the Smithsonian due to COVID. So we have been fortunate at our museum where our program was able to pivot and offer some of the same great experiences that we do on site. Much of what I spoke about was for the on-site experience, but again, it does translate to the virtual. So all the professional development trainings, the weekly seminars that we do, those are all been converted to virtual experiences. And similarly with the tours as well. We do a virtual tour of the offsite collections facility, Penzi, that I mentioned, that's led by one of our collection staff. And we also have kind of created like a virtual tour experience of the museum for anyone who hasn't been able to actually go there and visit in person. We do kind of a virtual experience where there's a online class that's offered where the the staff do like a video tour offering insight into the collections, the design of the museum, the history. So a lot of great fun facts that we're privy to as staff that the general public may not become aware of. So again, it's a great way to learn and connect, even though you're learning in a virtual space.
Great. Okay, I got another question. What is the timeline for selection decisions for summer 2021?
Sure. So with each of our application seasons, I try to move it through the system in a relatively efficient process where the application review. So from the deadline, I offer staff 3 weeks to review applications and conduct their interviews and things of that sort. And then from there, hopefully extend offers, offers be accepted. With our program, we do reach out to students to let them know whether they have been selected or not selected for the program. So no one is left hanging in the limbo state or anything of that sort. So people are kept aware of that process. But usually it's about a month from the deadline, give or take a week or two within there, that students will know whether or not they were accepted.
Great. About how many interns do you have every semester?
Honestly, it can really vary depending on the positions and where things are going at the museum. I will say due to COVID, and since we aren't having internships on site, the number of offerings has kind of decreased in a way, just because there's certain experiences that just can't translate into a virtual space as much as we try to make them fit within that parameter, but there are just some things that can't be done in that way. So we try to be very thoughtful in that way. At this time, I can say for the spring of 2021, we have 10 interns, 2 of which were extensions from a previous season that are still with us. And it can kind of like go up or down from there depending on the season and how things are. I've had as few as 3 to 5 interns in a semester, just because again, it was a little bit slower that particular season and we weren't really offering that many opportunities based on the work that was happening at the museum. But to kind of go back to the previous question also, I just wanted to mention that even if you aren't selected for an internship, any particular season in which you apply, I do always encourage students to reapply to our internship program. There, of course, are students who come through the doors, or thinking that they'll get hired and they do not. But it's not until that second or third time that they apply that they are selected for the program. And it could have been just because that year in school, you were missing one skill that would have set you apart or that you would have needed for the work that you were going to be doing in your internship with us at that time. Whereas in that next year, you got it, and then you're more qualified for that position. So I always say continue to reapply for our program, even if you aren't selected in one season. I have seen interns come from a previous application season and then get hired for our program. So keep that in mind. Don't ever become discouraged.
That's really good advice for students to hear. We had a question about international students. Are your opportunities open to international students, and are there any additional things that they need to do to be eligible?
Yes, so our internships, of course, are open to international students. There aren't any specific things that I'm aware of that you would need to do. Of course, if you are a student and you're here on a work visa or something like that, you can certainly use that for our internship. One of the places that I do recommend that OFI tells us to contact to let international students know to reach out to is the Office of International Relationships. That's OIR, or the Office of International Relations. And they have their own website on the Smithsonian. I believe it's linked on our NMOC website with the internship program as well. If you contact them and let them know that you are applying for an internship or have accepted an internship opportunity, they can give you guidance on how to obtain visas or which type of visa paperwork you should be doing. And they're also just a great resource because that's their specialty. They handle, different types of visas for, staff or researchers or any other body that's coming into the Smithsonian. So I encourage all international students to contact them and check their website as well.
Fantastic. We had another question. Is it feasible to intern and also work part-time?
Can you say that one more time? I didn't catch the first part.
Oh, sure. Is it feasible to balance an internship with also working part-time?
That's a good question. And unfortunately, I cannot give a definitive answer on that because I know it varies from person to person. I encourage students not to be overly ambitious just because the internships, for example, right now are virtual. So it kind of can seem like it would make it easier to do a job, whether that be on-site or virtual, and do an internship at the same time. I've seen students where they can get overwhelmed depending on the level of work or the demands, whether that be like working later than they anticipated or things of that sort. So I encourage students to be realistic with themselves. We are not going to discourage anyone from doing multiple opportunities, but I advise students to just kind of like be mindful and consider that time. We don't want you to be burned out trying to do your internship and other opportunities at the same time. So that would be my advice. Unfortunately, I don't have a definitive answer on how to kind of handle that.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Another question would be, what skill sets are you looking for in interns?
Oh, good question. First, I would want to say that it's going to vary from position to position, right? Each department at the museum works a little bit differently. You know, our external affairs department works differently than curatorial affairs, and our education department works differently from the two of those. So it's going to vary, as well as the different types of team members that you're working with. I will say that an overall thing that I think we all are looking for is going to be enthusiasm for the work that we do at the museum and what our museum represents and means to not only Black Americans, but also other minority groups, and just in telling the history and the story of America in that way. So having, of course, a level of passion and commitment for that and understanding of that is greatly appreciated, and kind of like puts the scope of the work into a larger context that we do at the museum. So that would be my first piece of advice. Secondly, I would say come ready to learn, or be ready to learn and be engaged, even if it's in areas that you did not anticipate that you would be exposed to or working in general. I would say that would be another element of that. And also just come and be professional. Even though we're a museum and we're part of the Smithsonian, we're the new kids on the block. So we are still learning and finding our footing. So there's always room to share ideas and to explore and try new things. And I think it's great because our museum, compared to others within the Smithsonian, aren't quite as rigid. We're a little bit more hip, I would like to say, and more modern. Even though I feel like saying hip makes me sound very uncool and saying it that way, but we have a lot of room to grow and to try new things in that area. So those would be my top recommendations for someone applying to our program as to what to consider.
That's really, really helpful. And along those lines, I've heard before that the essays are very important. I'm just wondering if you have any specific tips for how the students can really make their essays strong, and then also anything they should think about on their resumes.
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to try to cover this as best as I can. So I think when you're submitting any application, I can't stress this enough, but proofread, 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 and then proofread it 3 more times, or maybe get somebody else to put their eyes on it. I say that because I have encountered resumes and reviewed resumes where, or even applications where people have misspelled things, or they mention our museum at one part of the letter or the essay, and then another institution at the very end, or even send an email or something like that. And that sometimes some mentors or applicant reviewers can be lenient and considerate. Considerate in that ways, and but then there's others who are not. So you don't want something simple such as that to blow your opportunity, for lack of a better word. Additionally, like I said before with the essays, if you are applying to 3 positions or 2 positions or even 1 position, make sure that you speak to that position and why you were interested in doing that work and what this opportunity means to you, and how it will help set you apart or help you grow professionally or academically. Lots of students, when they write essays to our museums, from the ones that I have seen and reviewed, they will talk about how they visited the museum and it meant so much to them and they would love to internship there. And then that's kind of it. And then they just go into like this general, it feels almost like a template of what they have to offer without really talking about the work itself, which can kind of it turns me off from wanting to, I'm not the one that's reviewing all the applications and making the decisions, but it would turn me off if I was the person, if they weren't going in, that they were just giving like a surface level explanation as to what the museum means. Everybody can write that about, our museum or American history, or even, the Verizon Center or any place like that in that you may be applying for a job. But what's going to set you apart is talking more about that experience that you're going to get from the program. On a similar note, I've also had interns when they've submit, or applicants that when they've submit their essay, they don't talk about the position at all. They talk about everything else but that. Again, they'll mention like, I came and visited the museum, I've experienced this, I felt this, I saw this thing moved me in the exhibit. And then they'll talk about a whole nother project that they want to propose and they want to do. And even though they think that they are adding value to the museum experience, they still haven't talked about the actual work that we're going to be asking them to do for any of the up to three positions that they would be applying for. So you want to make sure you speak specifically to the position in which you are applying and you want to be considered. Otherwise, it looks like you are just submitting paperwork for other people to review without really having a level of thoughtfulness or consideration to it. I think those would be my top things. And I guess the last other thing that I want to add into that, even when you're filling out the application form, as we all know, we're kind of in an age where, you know, autocorrect and auto-populate are very easy to do, but those even make mistakes. So make sure that you are double checking all of that before you hit that submit button to make sure that your first letter and your first name and last name are capitalized, to make sure that you have put the correct title of your major and it's not, you know, auto-correcting it to something else, you know, that your resume is formatted correctly before you upload it into the system. Just little things like that can make a huge difference and set you apart from your counterpart. It's one thing to say that you have an eye for detail, but your first name is misspelled or not capitalized in your application form. Does that really show an eye for detail? So again, you want to make sure that the information that you are putting out there and mentioning as far as your skill set match up to what you are actually sending us.
Great, and I have one more question about the application itself. Who would make the best letter of recommendation? You know, if you had to choose between maybe a former internship supervisor or a professor, you know, is there a preference in terms of who writes the letter of recommendation?
Sure, I wouldn't say there's a preference, and I think there's not a preference, but I will say that the best choice is always going to be the person that is going to speak to your skills and your abilities the best, whether that be a previous intern, supervisor, or a professor, or even if you did a combination of the two, because you have two letters that you can submit. So you want to give us as the reviewers for your application as well-rounded a picture of yourself as we possibly can get. So if having those two dualities is helpful, then definitely do so. But just pick whoever is going to be able to speak to you in the most authentic way and also in the most professional way. I don't think you can go wrong with either choice as long as it's, of course, going to be the best choice out of the choices that you have.
That makes a ton of sense. Kind of a follow-up question somewhat to that is how much previous internship experience do interns with your museum usually have? Is this ever their first internship or do they usually have internships before they come to you?
Honestly, it varies. We have had some interns who haven't had internships before and some that have had, you know, maybe one or two. It just depends. The great thing about internships is that internships are opportunities to learn in a professional setting. It's a chance to test out whether or not the career field in which you are possibly considering going into or even receiving your degree in presently is an exact match or what you thought it was. So again, sometimes we get interns who have interned at one type of industry and switched over to another. But again, it's really just about exposure. So it really can kind of vary the number of interns as far as their experience that they've had prior to arriving to us.
Perfect. I know, Darius, you work mainly with internships and fellowships, but I'm just wondering if you have any insight into, are there ever times that interns are hired on for paid positions afterwards? And any words of wisdom for someone who is looking for more of an opportunity after graduation? Should they be looking on the website? What's the best way to kind of get in for opportunities beyond the internship?
Sure. So with the Smithsonian, this is going to be my general Smithsonian spiel right here. But with the Smithsonian, we place a huge emphasis on our internships being educational opportunities that benefit the intern first and foremost and the institution secondly. As part of my role and every other coordinator's role within the Smithsonian, if we ever encounter a description that's received from a staff member for an internship that sounds like it's going to be to more of the benefit of the museum or whatever in the Smithsonian, then it is our responsibility and we are obligated, morally obligated really, to have them reassess and relook at this because we can't do anything in that regard. Now, on a similar line, Interns aren't guaranteed any jobs after their internships. Our program, especially my program here at NMOC, is designed for you all to get the experience and try out a career field within that 10 to 15 weeks, and hopefully have learned and grown enough professionally and personally that once you leave the program, you're looking for other opportunities outside of the institution or outside of just another internship at our museum. Now, with that being said, there have been interns who have gone on to become extended at our museum and that have also come back later as a government contractor to do work at our museum or apply for another job at our museum after their internship has ended. With extensions, those are kind of done, evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Usually the determining factor is, of course, if there is continued opportunity for learning and growth after their initial internship, and also if the project that they're going to be doing or we're working on warrants more time or authority to really see it through from beginning to end. That could be, for example, if you're a design exhibit design intern and you're starting to work on a project of creating this new exhibit in the museum, and you get to the end of your 15 weeks and there's still just this, we'll say like another 3 to 6 weeks after your end date where you can still stay on site if we were on site and see the exhibit get installed, the artifacts placed in it, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that continued learning opportunity right there, right? So that would warrant an extension. But again, the extensions are determined or are offered by the mentor itself. It's not a guarantee that every internship is going to be extended or things of that nature. On the similar note, we also have interns that apply for other internships that might be coming up in the following season. And sometimes they are selected for those and sometimes they are not. So again, being a previous intern does not guarantee that you will receive an extension, or if you apply again to a different internship, that you will receive that internship. Now, on the side of full-time employment or part-time employment or things of that nature, as I mentioned, we do a government contracting session where we walk all of our interns through what that process looks like, because it is very confusing. But we do walk them through that process so that way they understand how to submit for government contracting positions. Also, the Office of Fellowships and Internships places on their website and has placed on their website where job opportunities can be found within the Smithsonian network. One of the things that I'm currently working on and building within our program at NMOC is intern alumni network. And within that network, we share contracting positions or future job openings at our museum out with our former interns that they have to apply to, of course. It's not again, it's not a guarantee that you will receive the job or receive the contract if you apply to it. But again, it's a way of sharing information with those individuals that we already have a connection with, letting them know like, hey, here's some opportunities if you want to come back and work with us. I always encourage interns to remain in touch with their mentors as well as with me and other staff that they may have connected with. Again, letting us know where they are professionally, and also if they are interested in other opportunities to reach out and maintain that relationship with us as well.
Excellent. I think those are all the questions I've seen in chat. I don't know if there are any other questions people want to in chat. I just have one last one. I'm just wondering if there are any cool things on the horizon for the museum, exhibits that are coming up, or just things you're looking forward to in the next year.
Oh, okay, sure. Yes, that's the very quick answer that I can kind of give. I'm very much looking forward to returning back to the museum. I think I was heading out of town or heading out of DC. I think it was Wednesday evening, and it was my first time driving past the museum in months. And I just was remembering like what it's like to walk up and go in and all those types of things. So I'm looking forward to that too. I think as many of our staff are looking forward to going back into the museum and seeing faces and sharing that experience with our guests and patrons of what it likes to be in our museum, and it's a very unique experience. And similarly, I'm also very much looking forward to having interns back on site. While I've been able to, again, pivot this to a virtual space, there's just certain things that, being able to take an intern into the museum before it opens to the public and do a tour with the curator and being able to ask those types of questions, or even when we do our Penzi tour in real life, we take it as an afternoon field trip. We grab our lunches, we hop on a van and drive an hour out and have lunch there at Penzi, and then, you know, they walk around the whole facility. It's cold and it's full of concrete, like a big warehouse would be, but just being able to like see a lot of the artifacts that aren't in the museum and like where they're stored and housed, like it's a really cool experience. And then being able to come back to the museum, and that's like a whole afternoon experience for them right there. Those are things I'm looking forward to having once again. On the side of exhibits, unfortunately, I can't really talk about too much of upcoming exhibits that aren't made public just because of rules and things that we have at the Smithsonian for protection. But there are some really cool exhibits that I'm really looking forward to. There's especially one in 2022 that I'm super excited for because I'm a bit of a comic book nerd myself. So I think that's what all I'm going to say about that. But there's that one thing that I'm really excited, looking forward to.
Great, thank you so much. And I think, Emily, you raised your hand. Feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure.
If we sign up for a summer internship and get one, and then we end up getting a vaccine, would that increase eligibility for us to go in person if we chose to, or if the opportunity arose with our internship that we're accepted into?
Sure, no, that's a good question. Unfortunately, due to the health and safety guidelines that we set forth at the Smithsonian, we're really keeping we have our, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it because it's a lot of information. We are really trying to limit the number of people that are on site in the museum physically, and that goes for any Smithsonian site. So even if you have a vaccine, if you're not deemed an essential worker, then you will not be allowed to go on site at the museum or any of the other institutions. With that being said, just to kind of give you some insight, similar to how I guess we as the general public have a reopening phase schedule, so to speak, the same thing applies to our institution and all the Smithsonians. We have a numbered or like a tiered system for how we're reopening in certain phases. And it's not until we meet certain phases within that staff will be allowed to go into the museum that aren't deemed essential. And the same thing goes for interns and fellows as well. So it won't be until we reach those different benchmarkers that, again, even if you have a vaccine, that you'll be allowed to come on site. And that's just unfortunately kind of where things are. I would love to be able to like maybe even just take one intern here and there to do certain projects, but we're just not in that space yet. And again, the safety of our staff and our employees, and of course our interns, is also going to be at a very high priority. So we don't want to do anything that would compromise that.
That makes sense. I see another hand from Ellen.
Hi, yes, I'm in library science at the University of Maryland, and I am wondering with this, I haven't worked in an internship before, so in order to get the experience, I mean, if this is for experience, an internship is for experience. So if you are getting in order to get the experience, then isn't it like something that's how do you get experience if you are trying to get experience, you know, like,
Yeah, so that's a good question. So one of the things that we do place an emphasis on, as I mentioned previously, with our internships at the Smithsonian just in general, is that they're education-based first and foremost. So we place an emphasis on giving the student opportunity to learn versus just coming in and doing the work. We don't expect the student to come in and do work, whether they are undergraduate or a graduate student or a recent graduate from their college or university. So I want to say there's like I don't want to say a fine line, but there is a balance between that, right? There's a balance between someone being able to, you know, understand like how to, we'll say, take their academic knowledge and experience and translate that into the workplace. And that's where an internship kind of comes in, because there's just certain things that you can't learn in the classroom. It's not until you're in the real world or in the work environment being able to apply them. So that's one of the things where we try to come in and saying like, oh, you've learned this in school. Okay, here's how you apply it and how this works in a real world setting, whether that be taking a research paper, for example, that you might have experience doing in an academic setting, but how do you write research and lay it out in a way that makes sense as a curator to other people or other curators that are going to be reading or taking that knowledge or information in. So there is a fine line between that, and we do ask that mentors, again, when they're reviewing applications, take that into consideration, like who is that applicant that just needs that additional opportunity to really set themselves up for the next level of success versus the student who already has had, you know, 5 internships and, you know, 6 majors and 3 minors, and that's an extreme example. But how do you find that balance between all that? Who is the student that's really going to benefit and learn from this opportunity and grow from it as well?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.